Inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today, and what a high honor it is to bring back one of the cats who, during this period of time, has really been a beacon of light for me because he seems to have his hand in many different creative cookie jars, making albums as authentically as possible to himself, trying to cultivate his family amidst this time, and still figuring out ways to be creative and stay inspired. It's hard during this time of gravity and just cognitive dissonance to stay clear-headed enough to feel inspired, to be able to make meaningful art. And it's an ongoing challenge and story, and I think it's permeating all musicians at this time. And I can only hope a year from now that my guest and I maybe, just maybe, can have a little scotch on the rocks and catch a hang and maybe play some music. Zephaniah Ohora, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
It's good to be back, Jake. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to that Scotch on the Rocks.
Oh man, I me too. I wanted you to, now that you have a little bit of perspective. I mean, this was not a traditional. The album that we were riffing on a couple months ago. In the past, it would have been cultivated in a different way, in the sense that there would have been tours around it. There would have been a lot of different ways to get the word out, and maybe you'd be onto a different project already. And I wonder if you can talk about, I'm not interested in the number of sales, but the feedback that you're getting on the album, and is there a silver lining to cultivating art that you're happy with, even though it's not a traditional time that we're living in?
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to. Well, it's been an interesting time, and yeah, I don't know where all the things would have fell if we weren't living in the time we're living in. But it's been interesting because I think that I've received good feedback, and a lot of people maybe are searching out music with, a message or some sort of a little slightly from a deeper place, which I think, country music, or at least my music, I try to go there with that to some level. So I think that, now more than ever, I think that people are reliant on finding some sort of solace or some sort of refuge in recorded music made by genuine good people and not AI, so
AI. Dude, it's true. It's totally spot on. Go ahead.
So I think maybe AI will eventually work for us because we'll all be part of AI. But
I gotta tell you, I gotta just.
It's a little distant.
Well, I mean, dude, as fortunate as I feel to be able to come to the station and feel connected to humanity, and still be able to do the show. I don't know what I would be doing with my brain if I didn't have that. I just interviewed Ernie Watts again, the saxophone player, and let's not kid ourselves. As it relates to music, AI has had their tentacles into recorded music for a long and disturbing time. I mean, he told me that by 1980, Harvey Mason is one of the best drummers I've ever heard. He was on that Headhunters album. He played on all these awesome. He's just a funky, nasty, awesome drummer. And by 1980, Ernie was saying that dude was on the drum machines, putting in his drum. He was creating he was creating computerized drum beats. They were his beats, and then he'd put them on a chip, and that's what was being used. Ernie said that Yamaha approached him about using his saxophone. They wanted to get his sound and then put it in a computer chip, and with the saxophone, there's too many overtones to it, and he fought them on it, and he was only going to get
Yeah.
paid one time. But basically, I mean, he said he was the only acoustic instrument in the studio after a while. So it's like, I totally dig what you're saying, because we're really like, AI is fully ensconced, and we're heading in that direction for better or for worse. But the lack of authenticity in music, in recorded music, even at that time, I mean, to the idea that musicians, it fundamentally just went so far away from humanity. And, do you feel, I don't know, what gives, this is so hard because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it appears, I mean, we have handled it so badly, and on top of that, it just doesn't seem like there's any end in sight.
Yeah.
Do you take it on and try to, take solace in the fact that there are many other people that you don't even necessarily know that are doing just the kind of stuff that Zephaniah Ohora is attempting to do? What gives you inspiration on your best day to feel the ability to want to create new stuff? Like, since the new album is, what can you talk about you can't, it's okay. Like, I think you were the one that might have said it to me. Somebody said, oh no, somebody else said, it's okay if you're not feeling creative. It's not a creative time. But on your best day, what are those intangibles that allow you to churn out some really great music?
Yeah, that's well, I think honestly for me, uh, I the the experience of recording music. I actually love recording music even in my apartment. Like I always have since I like years ago I bought like a
Yeah.
16 track like digital Yamaha digital recorder when I was like, I don't know, yeah. But back then it was felt like a fortune, but I'd saved up money, and so it had a 16 tracks and 16 gigabytes of storage, which was like, wow, 16 gigabytes of storage.
That's huge.
Now my iPhone has 5 times that much or whatever. But anyways, I've always just loved creating something from nothing, seemingly, or like the illusion of that. It's
Absolutely. That's the motto of my
that
show.
whole
Yeah.
experience, and so then to be able to go do that in a professional, really big studio with friends, or a small studio, but just like a proper professional studio with a real engineer and gear. I wish I could do that once a month, but unfortunately, just with how things work, it's a couple of years in between doing that, really, if you're doing a full length album. But I just really love that experience, which I recently actually just went back in the studio to cut a tune for the Neil Casal tribute record that's coming out, and that reminded me of that, how much I love just getting in the studio and do a take and get a thing going, and like listen back and think, wow, this didn't exist 2 hours ago. So
I
that's
love
like
it.
one of my main. I know that might be out of left field because a lot of people say that, oh, I really love the experience of being on stage. Which, if that was the case, I would be in trouble right now because that's not happening. But for me, just the recorded, just the thought of the idea of someone listening to something that I made and maybe experiencing the same emotions, or something similar. That's what drives me. It always has.
I love it,
You
and
know.
I think it's fantastic. Can you take us through, like, um, I lose track. I mean, God bless Neil Kasab. I've lost track of all these commemorative things that are coming out.
Yeah.
Is there another thing coming out that, can you take us through what you just
Oh no,
worked?
this is like the Highway Butterfly
Right. So you
record.
just did your track. So can you
Yeah,
talk
which
about the whole experience?
originally they were doing it out. I think the original plan was to do everything out at Jim Scott's place, um,
Right.
that studio that he has out there, and Dave Schools is working on it with him, and which oddly, ironically, or morbid or something, Neil, the last message I ever got from Neil was a photo of this pinball machine, a Dolly Parton pinball machine and it was actually in that studio. I didn't realize that's where it was. And then I saw some footage of someone cutting a track. I think Billy Strings or someone or something I saw they posted. I was like, oh my God, that's a pinball machine.
That's the one. The
That's where he
picture.
was. And
Whoa.
this is like a really like, whoa. But anyways, so I think everything was supposed to be recorded out there. And then of course now with COVID, they couldn't, they had to kind of replan it out. So we cut it at a place in Long Island City, but I did it with a couple of the guys that played on my record, and Jeff Hill was there too, who played on a bunch of the recordings out at Jim Scott's place, and obviously longtime friend of Neil's, and he was in CRD with Neil and all that. So yeah, we just was kind of hitting the deadline for that. So things got kind of put on hold because COVID was happening. It was like everyone's on lockdown, so
Oh, yeah.
things loosened up a little bit enough in New York that we could make plans to do that, and so we went in and cut a track.
What was it an original? Was it a tune of sentimental stuff, or was it a brand new? I mean, can you talk?
Oh, it's just one of Neil's songs. So
Oh, that's right. It was a cover. It was what
yeah,
song?
everybody's just doing like a Neil tune, but maybe like a little different
Sure.
take on it, or like Billy Strings did one. I think Phil Lesh is doing one.
Which one did you? Which one did you do? Which one did you do?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell anyone. So
Okay, no. I'm sorry. We're not. We don't. Listen. I do not want to be. It's been so long since I felt this way. Zephaniah Ohora back on the program. Zeph also has the greatest dead stream. Actually, is it tonight? Are you rocking one tonight?
Yeah, it's back tonight. I took the last couple. I've been kind of
No, it's
now
fine.
with the kid and all. They're kind of cutting back the hours a little, make it a little more special. Do it twice a month.
I love it.
Now.
Well, I mean, one of the deepest cats I've been able to connect with. We have a game called Name That Voice on the program. I want to put this in for you. Just listen to the content, and we'll come back and break it down.
Yeah, it did. I mean, when I got connected in Scientology, I went in for a specific reason. It wasn't like. I think this is, a lot of the misconceptions that people have about Scientology and many other of these sort of new things out there. When I got into Scientology, I was very close to becoming a serious drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
I was a guy that I could always get a jump on things in myself when things were going a little to the left or something. I was one of these guys ever since I was very young to be able to pull the plug on it before it went over the line. And I was right about there. And at that time, they had a program called Narconon. They still do. A great drug rehab program that people are not even aware that it has something to do with. Scientology is one of these. It's a big subject. It does a lot of things. I mean, you could learn accounting by taking a Scientology course. The best thing to know if you want to know about Scientology, you have to go on the website. So I can't even really spend time.
You know what it is? I
want you
to. That's all because that's it, man. I want you to talk about your experience. I don't care about what it says on the website.
So my thing was this: like, I was not at a good place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was not feeling good physically, and also too young to not be feeling good, and I recognized that. And so, when I got in there, basically what happened for me was my drug thing got handled, never ever went back to it after that. And then number two, I started, getting into another portion of something that's a little different than Scientology, but it falls under that, which is Dianetics. I read the Dianetics book, which is just mind stuff. I just had to get myself a little straight. I had problems. I grew up was a fairly normal life for a kid, but I had issues. I had issues with lots of things, with music, racism, poverty, family stuff. Just normal stuff that a young black kid or African American kid would have if he's really someone that's going to really inspect his life and how he's growing up, And I got into Scientology, and that just took care of everything for me. And
can you explain how, though? Can you explain how specifically? Because I mean, it is people are dealing with addiction. I mean, I this is why I love doing this with you on this show, because the artists, you guys are willing to talk about your fallibilities, but specifically, how did you get through it? Because it just didn't.
Well, okay, let me put it this way. Like, lots of times, a person may have a lot of problems, but when you really look at them, they're specific and specific subjects, and sometimes it's difficult to deal with specific subjects that bother you as specifics, because usually by the time it gets you and it's weighing you down like you got a damn elephant on your shoulder, is usually when they all converge together and you just have this big pile of mud in your universe, and you can't figure out, God, what the hell is it? Like, what, I feel so bad. And then you may look at some things, well, God, I wondered if it's, my problems with my girlfriend. Oh, I wonder if it's this. I wonder if it's that. Maybe, am I playing good? Am I, so basically what happened, I was able to separate all these things. They're courses that help you do that. I took a great course in very simple course in Scientology that I still use today. It's just a communications course, and it just basically is a course about communication. You could take this course, and like, for instance, someone like you don't have a problem with communication. That's why you're very successful at it, and you do it. But some people do have a problem with communication. Some people are, a bit introspective. Some people, just have problems with the communication cycle. Someone says something to you, and a guy, let the guy know you heard it, acknowledge it, say something. But you just, simple engagement. Some people have those problems. I was like that. You might not think that, because I've done thousands of interviews and things like that, but there was a time where I was just kind of one of these guys. I was, they used to call it shy, just a guy being shy, and it was something that I wasn't really happy with. I wanted to, because inside I wanted to, because I had thoughts and I had feelings, and I wanted those things to come out. I wanted people to understand what was in my head. So I just took a very simple course. It took me about a week to do it. It changed my life.
Zeph, I am not trying to indoctrinate you into Scientology, okay? I'm sorry.
I was listening to that and thinking, you know what?
You're like, where is he going with this? I'm like,
well, no,
go ahead.
I can think about all the people that have been involved. It's like, of course, it's got to be something good, and there's something in there that reaches people on some level.
Absolutely, and that was, believe it or not, that was my interview from 2015 with Stanley Clark. Okay, so Chick Corea got him in. He went with Return to Forever. Chick got him into Scientology, and because Stanley was, he was doing drugs, and I have no idea what drugs they were, but he was not feeling well. And the best story in my mind, the whole interview was awesome, but you talked about going to your church when you were a boy, and there was a cat with the shades on, and he was sort of channeling that Save Dylan vibe, smoking the cigs and things like that. And I really wanted to ask you about the thing about Stanley is this. Scientology gets written off and as some cult, and maybe it is. I don't know. But I feel like in our society today, there's so much knee-jerk reaction based on branding. So you say one word, oh, I had to go here, or I did this to get help, and immediately it conjures up all these other things, whether they're real or not. And
right.
when can you talk about a time in your career? I don't care how you could have been the first day you became a musician, but when you felt that mud, that in your universe, in your spiritual universe, and how you worked it out. I mean, he talked about it. It was a course in communication. He was a shy kid. He didn't know how to express his feelings, but apparently that helped him. And I just feel like one way that we're going to heal, if we will, as a society, is stop judging people based on these broad strokes of what we think things are. And I wasn't sure if there was something, not necessarily exactly similar, but something analogous where you were able to help yourself through, and what modality that was through.
Yeah, I think that I think I've had a couple different moments or points like that, going back to maybe the first few times where I didn't have any. I was just a kid, so I don't have any like bag. I had like a pretty good childhood, and I didn't come from like a real rough background. But I think I don't know if I carried something over from my previous life, or who knows if that's even a thing.
That's
But
right. Yep.
I don't know where it comes from. Is it like DNA? I've tried to figure this out for like years. Like, why is everybody
Yeah.
why is everybody so struggling so hard with being who they are, being happier? I've kind of said this jokingly, and this is kind of really veering off here, but it is on topic.
Go ahead.
But
Yeah, go
you've experienced this, like having a child. Like when you realize how difficult, like just being a baby is. Like, it's like a painful. It's a really big adjustment for this new being to like get used to all these things that we take for granted. You don't think about it anymore, and plus their bodies still growing and going through all these stages. And so you think about just like they cry so much, it's so traumatic, even though it's not a big deal, because it's just like, oh, you just have a dirty diaper. But I've been sort of joking to my friends or to my partner, but half joking and saying, no wonder people are so screwed up. This is like the beginning of your life. Is like this, like you're this helpless thing that's like can't communicate well, has problems communicating, and is experiencing all these sensations and pains and pleasures and all this stuff. But anyways, getting back to
No, I think it's. I have a different. I was so happy to be. I didn't look at it that deeply as a baby. I look at my younger daughter now, especially, who has some exceptional needs, and sometimes I feel that way about her, where I can tell when she's come home from school and she can't necessarily articulate verbally what happened, but I can tell that the kid's been mean to her, and yet she doesn't have a way to tell me that, but only through emotion. On the flip side, also, like with a baby, it's like, they cry. What's funny is that we've become, you might see this, I mean, there's not a lot of play dates going on in COVID time, but it's like, with like babies, it's like the minute that we've become so indoctrinated to believe that crying is a source of pain, we have to soothe them, when in fact it's just that's the way they communicate. I mean, people get all freaked out about babies crying, but
and that's true. Yeah,
and
that sort of counters what I'm saying.
Well, only in the sense that like it's a hyper. It's almost no, but I mean, I like. I mean, you're just right getting into it now. But I do. I just wanted to know like how you've, like, I mean, this is really like incredibly like not the greatest example, but I don't know. I found myself like. Like during this time, like, buying some American spirits and smoking cigarettes, like, like, and like, then I'm like, so I'm smoking cigarettes and then like during the day I'm going swimming and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You're smoking and that's not good for your heart and you're trying to exercise. So it was like, I just knew I had to, it was sort of like what Stanley said, like I've been good at getting out in front of things because I want to be around for my kids. I don't want to, I don't want to and I luckily don't have, somehow, knock on wood, I don't have this intrinsic, I realize that some people, it gets into their bloodstream and they just are fully addicted to cigarettes and they can never get off of them.
Yeah, it's so funny you should bring that up because I literally was just talking with my friend about that yesterday. But
of course, I mean, we're on the same telepath. I mean, again,
yeah,
it's weird.
I've been smoking American spirits actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the point is, I just was like, okay, if you're gonna try to get in shape and you want to be around for long term, stop smoking cigarettes. You know, like, I mean, it seems really
Right.
simple,
But that's not really, that's a big part of it. But if you eat really bad or don't exercise at all, then it's a lot of things. But
it is.
yeah, I've been having the same thing where yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I won't continue any further on that point. I'll actually answer your question, but on the side note, before I do
Go
that,
ahead. Yeah.
you should check out this book, The Holotropic Mind, which is
Oh man.
by this guy Stanislav Grof, and it's
Holotropic,
about how
what does that
like
mean?
all trauma, all human struggle is all based off of birth trauma. And that sets the tone for the rest of your life, and all of your experiences after that
Are you
are
kidding
all
me? Are you
connecting
kidding me?
back to this thing. It's really
No,
interesting.
because I mean, I'm just going to say this, and then we can sort of get back on the rails. But I mean, my mom and dad talk about I came out of the womb with the umbilical cord tied around my neck.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was not an easy birth. So
Right.
maybe I'll buy that book immediately. Anyway,
It's really interesting, and
Jeez.
it would take me a long time to even explain a little bit that I understand of it. But getting back to answering your question, the first time with music, I was pretty young, and I was in church, and then I felt like I wanted to like raise my hands or something, like that's what people were doing in church, and I was a little kid, but my siblings kind of made fun of me for it. That was the first time I ever experienced people being like, "What are you into this cult thing?" or like like
no, I'm
associating
feeling
it.
the
But I
spirit,
was just
man.
searching
Yeah,
out,
man.
And then it happened again later when I was a teenager, where I started playing. I started going to the youth group in the church, and then I got nominated to be the leader of the youth group band. And so, anyways, that was, of course, I was a teenager, so I had lots of problems. It's like I'm a teenager, I'm really emotional. But so that music kind of helped me cope with all that. And then now, when I got into my 30s, when I made my first record, it was like more in a more mature ways to communicate. I was able to use my words and my knowledge to put down on paper and into a recording, what I was trying to express, and that becomes a cathartic, thing that you experience in it, and it only blossoms from there if you continue to nourish it, or if you continue to take care of it like a garden or something, and make sure that you continue to show up and not wait for the muse to show up. So
I mean,
that's how you're inspired too. Is that I'm not just. It's not like being inspired by life. Like, it's more like I don't want to lose that, so I need to go work on some songs. Or I need to go work on this thing because I don't want it to go away. Because it's like, it's such a special little thing that you don't want to ignore it for too long, and let life get too busy.
mm-hmm.
So that's a funny thing about the COVID time is I think a lot of people are having a hard time feeling inspired, but everything kind of feels like there's no future, because we don't know what's going to happen. It feels as if we're just living in this like in between, and there's
Well,
no
I mean,
future
it's
to
also
plan.
like, I mean, it is.
That's,
It's hard to say because as badly as we've mismanaged it, this thing is so novel that places that have had huge lockdowns in Europe are now seeing spikes again. But at the same time, the problem here is like, there's just the dysfunction is insane, and so I just want to ask you about going back to when you're starting. I mean, Dylan. That's what Fred Tackett told me. I mean, he's like. Dylan was like, man, I don't go to those mega churches. He's like, they have no soul. He's like, I go to the Spirit Church, man. Like, and like that's the Zephaniah Ohora. That's the Jake Feinberg Church. I mean, I'm, my name is Jewish, but I mean, like, I go to the Spirit Church. And is there a song you can point to and some lyrics that just were you even conscious that was what was happening? Was you were transposing what you felt from those scriptures or what was inspiring to you at that time in the music? Is there a tune you can point to, or how did that
Oh,
work?
like a current tune that I've
No, I mean when
written,
you
or
first said that you started to write out and you were able to express what you were feeling at that time. Um, can you?
yeah. I have a couple on my first record, but the title track is kind of about that. It's like a talking about going down a highway, but it's an analogy for life that you don't really know when it's going to end, but you still feel like you have some stories to tell or live, which you can tell people about. So, and that's kind of, it keeps going, as in like maybe it keeps going beyond this, Um, and then the title track for my new record is literally exactly writing about that whole thing of that experience and trying to, you know, use my words to describe what I've experienced in the past from that and the whole spiritual thing of that. I think that's answering what you're asking,
Yeah.
but
So no, I mean, how would you? I would love you to talk about your, you know, point of view spiritually and how you lead a spirit. I mean, you said you grew up in New Hampshire. Is that right? Yeah.
yeah,
So I mean, you grew up in a obviously it was safe but I would assume somewhat dogmatic. It may not have been exhaustive, but there was. I mean, you were being led by Scripture and what the lessons within it. And I just would love you to talk to cats out there today about how you live your life. How do you stay on the righteous path and still stay true to yourself? Because I mean, I feel like a lot of people that are ensconced in monotheistic religion, they know, they feel guilt, they feel shame about things, but somehow within those religions, you're taught to just not look at the elephant in the room. Like you're just supposed to look down or look away or just keep plodding along, and somehow you'll be saved. And I could be way off, but I just feel like
yeah,
there's a lot of people that, I mean, in the book that just came out, Richard Davis, this incredible upright bass player, he said that he spent most of his final years in the music department at Madison, Wisconsin, working with all students on racial tolerance, and he recommended a book to a woman. I forget which one it was, and she called him up, white woman. She called him up crying, and she said, I just read through the first couple of pages and I'm starting to cry. She goes, I'm so happy I have to go to a massage right now, so she could avoid it, right? So she could just stop reading. She didn't want to keep going. And
wow,
I feel like with someone, I talk to someone like you, not that you're, you're not a social justice advocate, but you've continued to go forward to find your truth. And so many people
right.
that are caught up in the monotheistic stuff, they're just sheep. And so how have you been the most authentic shepherd?
Well, and I was going to make a point earlier about, I think the funny thing is everybody is in their own cult, and that's relating to all that stuff.
Yeah,
You may not feel
that's right.
just like the Dylan song, which I heard in the car. I got a car. We got a car because we have a kid now. So like, I guess we got to have a car.
Yeah,
We
you
live in
gotta have a car
Brooklyn,
now.
but
Yeah, you can drink.
I was driving across the Brooklyn Bridge coming back from Manhattan after running an errand, and that song Serve Somebody came on, and I thought that's so spot on. It's like you might think you're just doing this thing, but you're serving somebody.
Absolutely.
And obviously that's in the devil and God thing, but it's an analogy for more than that. But finding my path, it's I don't know. I'm still trying to unravel it or figure it out. I think that in some sense, I think you go down the road of maybe part of the road of having a child or deciding to do that is like some sort of thing where you're trying to, I don't know, you're driven down that direction because it's gonna cause you to face a lot more things about yourself or look at yourself more, but also it's not about you anymore. It's a part of that whole process, and it's a humbling experience. And yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. I think for a long time, my my mode of conduct, or the way I would be, would just to serve myself, like that I was just being selfish and I'm just going to do what I want, smoke cigarettes, go out to the bar, like, you know, be my own boss or whatever. But I think maybe expanding your life out into more challenging situations like that would keep me on the righteous path, as you say, or keep me on track for some sort of, finding the right
Yeah, because
knowledge while I'm
because
here, while I'm alive.
I mean, what
Like,
you
I think the main goal that I've realized is we have to learn as much as possible while we're here to prepare ourselves for the next stage after, when you die, so that hopefully you don't just come back here and have to do it all over again because you missed something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I mean, I've always said too. I mean, constitutionally, when you have, if you're an engaged parent, and there's plenty that aren't, but if you are, you wind up constitutionally, you have to grow emotionally, and then even just, I mean, your baby, they're going to grow up, get bigger, but I mean, you're going to carry them around. You're physically going to get bigger. Like it's an amazing expansion of growth if you really dive into it head first, and it's something that you really want to do, and or even if you don't, it is humbling. It's also, I can honestly say that my daughters they inspire people every day by who they are, and it's like, and I'm not just, that's not lip service. I mean, I know, and it's so, it is this endless well of inspiration for me, because I mean, that's it. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, it encourages more self-exploration, and it encourages, at least in my case, to dream more. A lot of people tend to get incredibly conservative when they have kids. They have to, support the family and, make more money and, whatever, just they become more serious because having a family is quote unquote serious, which it is. But at the same time, they were like, when I saw the innocence and the lack of motive and like you said, some of the patterns of young life, and I was like, my God, man, if we're gonna be here, we got to learn. That's just what you said. I have to learn as much as possible while we're here. So I remember just like probably 2012, I walked away from teaching, and the entire year, Dizzy Gillespie's voice was in my head, like, "Hey, man, because my second daughter was young at home. He goes, you better not waste any time, man. You better start doing some interviews." So because I said the only way I'm going to learn is through accessing all these people. So I just kept interviewing, and then over time it's like and you transcribe it, so the stuff gets in your head. So I guess that's really what I've been trying to do, is learn as much as possible about everything, and my kids taught me that, just to see that innocence, and knowing that, someday it's humbling. They get older and you see the same traits in them that you had, that you didn't necessarily like, and the key then is to not resent that, but lean into it and help them through those processes. But that's I mean, let me ask you though, in this sort of nebulous in between time, have you had glimpses outside of going to Long Island City and cutting that track and things like that? I mean, how are you staying spiritually alive outside of the love for your family and like as a template for other cats? Because it's like, I have a fundamentally very hard time. I'm looking at these drive-in concerts, or concerts in like penalty boxes or something, like putting you in like encased shields and things. It doesn't feel authentic, and to somebody who actually makes music that's authentic driven, I can't see it being real either. So how are you dealing with the in between, and can you talk about what gets you off in this time?
Yeah, I mean, on some levels, I think I'm just biding my time, and then just like taking the opportunity, like you were asking, like the silver lining of, well, maybe I can. It's a little less complex right now because I don't. Well, it's still complex because I'm still doing interviews or trying to promote the record and fulfill orders online and things. But I'm not like also going on tour, even if it's only for a couple of days. That's presents a new set of challenges with my new life changes. Um, but I sort of it's been on my list. Or I'm hosting a little show, this online radio show called Gimme Country. So I agreed to do like some more shows for them. So I have to put together, playlists of songs, country tunes and stuff because it's sort of a country theme station.
Whoa! Wait,
So
wait,
doing
wait,
stuff
wait,
like
wait, wait,
that.
wait, wait. Can you plug this a little bit? How long has this been going on for?
I'm only doing the second one now. I did the first one, I don't know, a month and change ago, or 2 months ago, maybe. And it's, just play a bunch of songs and I say stuff about it. But my approach is kind of like there's a little bit of history I know about the recordings, or the connection between this recording and then this other artist and that artist. And so I do kind of similar thing with the Deadstream thing too, is sort of like I like to find out some sort of info out there about the shows, like cool, interesting historical bits, even if they're like just some trip report from someone
Dude, are
in
you
archive,
kidding? You can find
you know.
any nugget. I mean, dude, it's by the way, happy birthday, Brent Midland today. I'm so psyched to be talking to you on Brent's birthday.
Oh, is it today?
Yeah, dude, 10/21/83. Worcester is the best show. I mean, dude, happy birthday before Scarlet Fire. Yeah, happy birthday, Brent.
Oh man,
He was. If you really want to know,
that.
I mean, the truth is, he was the cat. Someone foisted an '82 analog cassette on me from Starlight Theater, Kansas City, and
yeah.
that was the first year that I fell in love with the Dead, and it was because of Brent. They simulated an acoustic piano in one of these Yamaha electric pianos, and it was the most beautiful sound. And I loved that show, and Brent got me into the Dead. So happy birthday! Anyway, yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
You could find.
Yeah, so it's doing stuff like that, and I got which as I told you, I haven't had much time to read like as much as I have in the past. I need to be reading more, but I got some books on, like, a lot of people. It's a little controversial. Like, some people think this is silly. I've had all sorts of conversations with people about this, but songwriting books. Like, I read some like years ago and like did all these sort of methodology to it, because I really do believe it's like an instrument. It's like just like guitar or something. Nobody's born a really amazing guitar player or drummer or bass player. It requires a lot of time of
absolutely
actually learning methods. So, and it's no different with songwriting, even though songwriting is a little more mystical in this sense that you're pulling, information from somewhere, of experiences of people or yourself or who knows. But anyway, so that's the other thing I've been doing to kind of try to stay or inspire myself, is to start to doing these writing exercises. And I found the last time I did it, I wrote a lot of the songs that I have on record now. It's like, and the analogy is that it's like diving. If you're deep diving, if you're into deep sea diving, you can't dive to the deepest depths right away. You have to continually go back and get your body in shape for that and do this whole thing. And then eventually, once you get better at it, you can go down there much quicker. It's like you're more adapt to it, and so it's the same way with the psyche. It's like the more time you spend just writing, free form writing, the more able you are to get there quicker, to dig out the really good stuff. That's like, so it's an interesting analogy, and it seems to kind of work when I've actually followed some of the methods.
I thought you were going to say that. I thought you were going to say that you were throwing the books away and making it. But I think you're right. I mean, like you're just going to make up your own methodology.
Well, you can do that, but there is a thing of just there's just all sorts of different writing exercises that you can do, and it's more about I'm not going to spend 10 minutes doing this maybe because I don't have time I'll have to change a diaper or something. But I'm gonna set a timer every day and spend 1 minute, and then I'm gonna stop writing. Or if I set it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, but that's the amount of time, and you're just writing. And there's all sorts of other stuff beyond that you build on, but there is your own method. But I don't know. I think everything else in the world is pretty much set up that way. There's a process for everything, so it would make sense to me that for songwriting and digging up like really good stuff, I'd want to become really good at digging that stuff up. So
this is interesting. I just came into my head, but like, we're both obsessive. We love the Dead and Grateful Dead, and just to me, like, the funny thing is like literally the Phil Lesh line, they never played the same song the same way once, and I just wonder, like, with your songs, and with like, do you feel like, this is an ideal thing because we're not living through that time right now, but if you had an opportunity to tour the songs that you had made on the album, would you make an effort to not just change the set lists, but also like stretch tunes? How in your, I just talked to a singer in Kingston a couple hours ago, and she's really cool and she's got a great voice, and but she really hasn't had a lot of bandstand experience. I mean, I tried to pin her down on, like, how do you let the songs take on a life of their own? I mean, it's great. You can go in the studio and make 4 albums, and things like that. But how do you let it breathe, And I wonder if you've maybe changed your perspective or thought about post-coronavirus, whenever that is, about approaching a live set with a band, and how you would allow those songs to take on a life of their own.
yeah, absolutely. I've definitely thought long and hard about all that. I've done it to the extent I could with the resources I had, even touring up to this point, which I always never had the same set every night. I always write something a little different and add a couple tunes in there that are more stretched out, but also like find ways to stretch the songs out. I think some of that might be a combination of just like the actual approach of the song has to have some sort of formula or format to it that allows for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do think that you can kind of work within stuff if it's not super crazy wordy, where there's space to do that. And there's something to say about that for sure. And I wish I could move even further. I had a couple of bar bands that I would play with every week, and we would definitely do like more, Jerry band style, or like a little bit of Dead stuff, like where, we just kind of play a lot of that repertoire, but not note for note, but just doing the same approach of like letting it stretch out and just kind of seeing where it goes. So I had a lot of practice already doing that. So that's got to have an effect on how I write, which I kind of already feel like some stuff I've been starting to work on has a little bit more of room for that.
I guess
there's something to say about if a song is crafted in a certain way and in the moment live, you execute it in this like really precise, clean way, but it's still inspired. It doesn't sound like a rehearsed thing.
Absolutely. It's burning.
And that's like an amazing thing to pull off. It's like I don't know, playing classical, or I don't know what the comparison would be to that, but
I know what the comparison.
I don't know. Maybe it's like ice skating.
No, the comparison is a first set of a Dead show.
That's true.
A Peggy O or a Greatest Story. I mean, dude, you hear a burning first set. Those are tight songs that are played with urgency. I think that's the point, is that how do you go about surrounding yourself? That's the thing about I've told you many times how obsessed I am with a certain period of the Dead, but when you listen to that time, Jerry is getting off because Phil's getting off. Phil's getting off because Jerry's getting off, and then Billy's I mean, they all go. You have to go for it, as a group.
Yeah.
It's not just like Garcia, he's coming up with those insane chords and melodies and ideas because everybody, for the most part, it's, Bobby and Mickey are great, but I mean, with Phil and Billy, they're all going for it. And I wonder about how you go about, it's not just about you. I mean, you can bring the songs to the table, but ultimately you could go there, but if the rest of the band is in formula mode, it's not going to work. So how, as a talent scout, how do you go out and look for, what are the intangibles? Because that's the whole point, is like the best secrets about this stuff is like, you're not searching out people that can play their instrument necessarily the best, but there's certain nuanced qualities that of people you say, yeah, everybody brings something different to the table, and that's what makes it gumbo. That's what makes it music. And I wonder if how you've learned to cultivate that, because I think it gets lost on a lot of people. They say, oh, I want to bring in, this person can play so good. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily going to make it a good team. I mean, how have you learned over time to, in the studio or on the bandstand, to build a team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really, honestly, the most important part of that for me, what it comes down to is like a personality thing. So
Right.
bringing the right types of personalities in, and then I think that it locks in a nice way, because it's like the vibe of who you're playing with is going to affect things big time, I think. So that's maybe been my approach, is someone that I genuinely would want to be friends with or spend some time with, because I'm spending pretty intimate moments with them. So I've had to do some tours or to play some gigs with people that I really don't know, or I'm not like super keen on them, but there's someone that can play their instrument well enough that I just have to do it,
Absolutely.
and that's never fun.
No, because also
It's
and the key is that, the best times with those people are on the bandstand, because you don't have to deal with them, and that's only 2 hours out of the day. The rest of the time you got to hang out with these people. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's not. I mean, that did you learn that team? I think you're 100% right. Would you like to get along with? Do you vibe with the people? But did you learn that through trial and error as a leader? I mean, were there times, or did you know intrinsically when you started to be a leader of a band that you always wanted to be around people that you liked?
Yeah, I think both. I think maybe I knew that, and then there's times when I sacrificed that for, well, this is the person that, for whatever reason, I would have do it, and then you kind of feel like it just wasn't happening, like it wasn't the right match. And then there's like certain people that you just feel comfortable with and around, so you can be expressive, and if you do want to take things somewhere else, you feel comfortable with them, that they're not going to judge you for it. And so I think that's what we're going back to the Dead thing. That's what the main thing those guys had, was that they all actually really liked being in each other's company, and they were like, really close, and so that allowed them to be able to be really expressive and go together in these experiences. And I've experienced something like that when I make the right decision, that it's like the right people I can count on, and like I just feel comfortable with them, and like that to me is the secret ingredient to a good live band. And if you do want to stretch out, those are the people you want to do it with.
Have you I mean, we're not you have a baby at home, but you're not a baby at all. I mean, we're well into adulthood here. But have you talked with older musician friends? I mean, I think the point is that there will be an end at some point, hopefully, and you will be able to resume creative music and get back on the bandstand. But sometimes I'm driving home after picking my daughter up from school, and we're listening to the Dead. I'm just going on the Grateful Dead, but it could be anything. I mean, and I think about like what it must feel like, forget the financial stuff, but just the idea that guys that have literally been just live players their whole lives, knowing that they may never get back on the bandstand. And then you sort of enlightened me today to say, like, for you, even though everyone would prefer to have more flexibility, you're not craving the band. You're not like, you're okay. You're not dying because you're not playing live music. But I wonder if you've talked to older peers of yours, artists, and what you've gleaned from them, if at all, the wisdom and the acceptance of knowing that they may have played their last show. And when I've talked to cats, older cats, the most salient thing they said to me, one of them, I forget who said it, they said, I don't have any qualms because I always played every show as if it could be my last. And it sounds Pollyannish, but now I know what that means. So when you approach it like that, then you're at peace. But I wonder if you've dealt with the whole range of emotions from your older peers, because I'm collaborating with a drummer in New Orleans, Johnny Vidakovich, on a book. He may never get back on the bandstand. I don't know. I mean, can you riff on that at all? I mean, it's different. Younger cats, there's hope. But what have you gleaned, if anything, from your older, wiser uncles and brothers and sisters?
I don't know if I've only had a few conversations with people in depth, and I think that some people, maybe for them, it's maybe they're learning to find like other things in life, that other simpler, more subtle things in life that make them happy or feel fulfilled or something. But it's interesting because that whole thing, like, oh, I didn't realize this could have been my last show or something. Yeah, it's always like that with anything, relationship,
right?
Ends. Like, there's so many moments in life. It's always like, if I'd only known, like, that was the last time. It's like, damn it, I would have really made it count. But I did make it count. It's like that, like, never ending. You can't ever get to the point of it. You're like, I did let it count.
Right, exactly. How much more can you make it count?
For granted. I experienced actually the same thing though when I used to play at that place, Skinny Dentist, that I worked for. I was there every week. It was starting to become a thing where I enjoyed it, but I knew my close friend I played there a lot with, and some other people. It's like it just becomes a little bit of a job, or like just like you're just going through the motions, even though you have moments where it's really great, but maybe you drink a little bit too much that night, or like, whatever, like you order some delivery food that you shouldn't be eating, but whatever. It's like, those are the little highlights of like your routine,
Because that's what it is. It's a routine. So
like now I look back, even though I knew in it, I was still enjoying it to like maybe the fullest I possibly could at that moment in time. But it's always that thing you can never get back to, this whole thing of like, if I just, and I did experience that for a while, even though I say now, I'm like, oh, I'm happy like recording. I still, I miss just going into a bar where a bunch of people know who I am because I book there and I play there a lot, and like running into people and then like playing a great show. It almost feels like it's a dream or something, It's like, it doesn't even seem real.
I know. I mean, I think it is a dream. I think it was.
There is something nice about it in the sense that you're like, well, that was the chapter then, and like now I'm going to move forward and try out other ways or other avenues to find the same sort of fulfillment or satisfaction or meaning in my life. And I think a lot of people are probably going through that. But yeah, it must be really hard for people that genuinely are older, that they don't want it to end because they're like, I don't want to just sit around and read books or cook dinner, like that's got to be really hard, but
I mean, I just think about someone like Phil, like,
yeah,
he opened his own, I give him so much credit. He opens his own, he's not a restaurant owner. He opens his own venue. He freaking plays, he brings in all these cats that actually have no background. Every single cat had no background really in the dead canon. It was genius. and yet, you know, he's working it out with them on the bandstand. And, you know, I was there a handful of times. It's just a fantastic place now. And he's, like, Phil was the oldest member of the band. I just got hip to that, like, last year, you know. I was like, I didn't even know that. And it's like, I certainly don't feel bad for him. They certainly had plenty of opportunities to play. You know, I mean, like
all of us in 10 of our lives.
You know, like, I mean, they were always like, well, what else is there than the live experience? You know, but you know, it's like, is this really is this the last time? You know, you hope not. It's just, you wonder. To say that, you know, if people have always been doing different types of multi-entertainment for themselves, painting and poetry and whatever, then it's not a big deal. But, you know, if you've lived and died for the music, I'd say that's got to be awfully hard to find something else that is, that will give you that same kind of satisfaction. I mean, to me, I wonder if, like, do you feel like you've had any revelations? Might be the wrong word, but I mean, do you feel like this is a time that you can write about and put into song form? Just the idea of COVID, that is also intersecting with you being a young father. But do you think that, like, this is a time that when we come out of it, you're going to have songs written about? Because I keep trying to tell my older daughter that, I mean, you know, this is unprecedented. I don't think there's like, I could count on my hand the number of people that were alive during the Spanish flu. I mean, there's nobody around that was around at that time. If they are, they're pretty old. And so, I mean, this is unprecedented. And then obviously we're living through just insanity on the political level.
Right.
And I couldn't, you know, for you as somebody who's a creative and you're not forcing things, you're trying not to, is it more about, is the method, do the germs of songs potentially for these times come only after it's done? Or do you think that there's stuff that kind of pops into your head during the time to say, well, this is relevant, I want to jot this down?
Yeah. I think I thought maybe a little bit of both. It's like the few good ideas that I feel like come down the pipeline, which I always write about time and stuff. It's like one of my topics, whatever you want to call it, things that I always like to touch on, which sometimes I'm like, maybe I need to stop singing about time passing or time.
Yeah, right.
But then again, it is like the center. I mean, it is. Time is, you know, it's like, it's kind of what this is all about. It's time, you know. It's like, it's more than just hours and minutes passing by. There's so much in that, you know. But I've messed around with a few ideas here and there with that. I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know if I can really fully see that. I
mean, I think that maybe, first of all, Obama said, I forget what it was in reference to. I think it might have been, it's exactly what you're talking about. This is going back to, I think, oh God, somebody said it. It was like one of these tragedies, or somebody just said, you know what they lost? They lost time. And that's the most valuable thing you could. Oh, it was the 9/11 fire. All the people that died, not the people that died instantly, but the firefighters and the people that got sick. And I remember Jon Stewart. Thank you. It was Jon Stewart in front of Congress.
That's right.
He said they lost time, and you can't ever get that. And so that is the most salient thing. You wonder, though, will the real ideas related to this, the imagery and the symbolism of this time, only come to fruition when you are happy or feel inspired because we've, quote unquote, turned a corner? Who knows? I mean, we might be too far in it to see what's really going on right now. I mean, I can honestly say I'm just physically, even though I try to exercise and swim every day, you know, I still feel tired. I'm tired. Like, it's been, like, I have fatigue from this whole thing. And part of that is because I've not been able to, you know, I would normally be a whirling dervish on the road healing my disease through live music. I probably would have come to see you by now and hung, you know? It's and so I don't have that that modality to heal. And so it's
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's even just just a regular, everyday, just going somewhere you have to be and you don't want to be there or something. There's all this. Yeah, I've been half joking with my friend actually
That
the
Jake
other
from
night.
State Farm
The text.
costume is
sorry,
amazing.
sorry.
So it's getting a tow with your State Farm mobile app.
Nope, State Farm. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyways,
go ahead.
just was having a sort of half joking thing with my friend saying that every week or day it seems I'm losing my marbles a little bit in different ways, like little like really subtle like I think that's how it's affecting people. He was like, yeah, man, that's what everybody's probably going through. It's just this, you're kind of losing your shit.
Right.
You know, and like just like these really almost atomic level of life experience points where you're like, okay, and you accept it, and then you move forward, and then it's this other new little corner
You're
of
nailing
like,
it,
where you're
dude.
like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know what it is about today, but I'm just thinking about this shit, and it's pretty heavy, man. You know?
Well, no, because I feel it
And
too.
then
I
it
mean,
just keeps going, but you're
it's
okay still, you know?
well, it's totally at an atomic level. It's totally atoms. Like I feel my body temperature getting higher, you know, then it will cool down. I mean, it's a frantic state. And I'm just reading this here, and then, you know, you sort of, it says Keith Jarrett confronts a future without a piano. Because,
Yeah, I was just reading that
I mean,
too.
it's like, you know, like this guy who, you know, you can say what you want about his personality. I've never been able to interview him, but, you know, the guy is prolific, and now this final act is, well, because of health, he can't even play the piano anymore. It's like, so,
Yeah.
you know, I can't even say.
But that's the stuff
yeah.
that life throws, you know, and that's the interesting thing that I'm
Right.
thinking about talking about this. It's like, yeah, it's almost like a bunch of musicians or people that love music, they're experiencing like what it's like to have something like that happen, or like you get a serious injury or you become crippled in some way. You can't do what you used to do anymore. And you know, you have those like crazy stories of famous musicians, people that like were so talented and so successful, and then something like that happens and then they can't do it anymore, and it's just like, wow, that must have been so difficult to handle, but somehow the human spirit continues forward and they find other ways to not just, you know, become really negative, angry person, or, you know. And it's the same thing with like when people die or people commit suicide or whatever. It's all these things where you're like, if I had only like, if had I known, I would have called them up, or I would have texted them back, or, you know, I would have said yes to that hangout that I was too busy to go do. You know, this is all related to that somehow. It's
You're absolutely
interesting.
right.
Everyone's
You're
going through a
absolutely-
weird.
You're absolutely 100%.
You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, no, but
And that's all down to time. It's like a limitation of time, and everything has an ending, or everything has a closing, you know, but something else opens up out of that, but you have to kind of find that, and it gets a little more complicated or harder to find as you become older. Sometimes it's not. Maybe sometimes it's really easy. It's like, oh yeah, you know.
Well,
I hate my 9-to-5 job, you know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
some people, it's been a pretty easy, like, yeah, wait a minute, what the hell was I doing for the last 20 years or something,
right,
you know?
Right. You're nailing. I mean, I think what you talk about, the essence of time, and then the adaptability of the human species within that time is essential. I mean, how are you going to adapt? And I'd say the one thing that, you know, I wonder when you got this memo, maybe you're still waiting for it, but I think you got it. It's, you know, at the end of the day, Zephaniah, you know, I can speak about, you know, for myself and yourself, you know, we're blessed, you know, and so the idea is when did you realize that whatever you were going to do musically, a lot of times the atomic level insanity occurs when I'm desiring something, or I feel frustrated that I can't attain something, or it's my ego, right? When I realize that my whole ethos and when I'm operating at my best is when I merely, what is my intention for doing it? It's all about intention and no expectation in return. None. And I just wonder when, I feel like that's one of those things when you put something out there, or when you do something that you really don't know how to do, you know, and it's petrifying. the question is, when did you learn that it's only really about intention and never about the result? I mean, and believe me, I fall back on that every day. But it's like there's so much in there where it's like, I just called you. I was like, yo, let's do an interview. You're like, I'm busy. Let's do it in October. And then just randomly, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, great, it's time. Let's just go have a good time. There's no expectation. There's nothing. There's no quid pro quo. It's just about having a good time. Just about walking out of here and feeling, invigorated. That's it. I guess that maybe that's intention. But have you have you worked through that memo, or maybe you're still waiting? I mean, to me, it's like if you always expect stuff in a transactional fashion, or you have huge expectations, this is going to be the hardest time that you've ever lived through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a little bit of a pessimist. People give me a hard time for that, but
Yeah, we'll break you out of that.
In the past, expect the worst. Hope something good happens.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I've changed a little bit over time with that, but I mean, I don't know. I related to what we're talking about. I definitely, like, in my teens into my early 20s, maybe I really thought I was going to be a famous musician, like somehow to be a famous song, or something was going to happen, that someone was just going to come knock on my door one day.
Right.
Like, hey man, here's a record deal, and here's your fame and fortune. And so at some point I kind of realized that wasn't happening, or that wasn't coming. I was too lazy to, I don't know what it was, but so I kind of moved away from that. And then I just kind of realized that, like, I really was convinced, I'm telling you, that was my identity. Like I had like long hair and I was like this, dressed this way. And then
You sure you weren't like really high on
somehow
acid at that?
humbled.
Yeah.
I was humbled by the reality once it started to kick in, and maybe, I don't know, I started taking a bunch of psychedelics at that time. So like maybe that somehow I learned something in one of those experiences that I was like, you know what? It's totally okay if I'm not that. Maybe I should just go pursue anything, because all that matters is I'm here alive, being able to experience life, period. And then fast forward to my 30s, and this place opened up, and then I kind of fell into playing music again with people that I knew just for fun. It was just pure, like, oh man, these guys are great musicians. I can have an awesome country band. I've always wanted to have that. Just do it. Just play at this little bar. Mm-hmm. Then I started playing with that guy, Jim Campolago, and then he said, hey, you should make a record. I guess I should, And so it was never, I actually genuinely came at it from a really, no expectations, just like doing it because I love doing it and because I wanted to document what we were doing. And here we are now. It's not like I'm not that super famous guy living in Hollywood, living a really like lush life, but I do feel proud of what I've made so far in the little time I've been doing it, and the people I've met, been able to talk to, and like all the musical experiences. That's pretty cool, and it's like I kind of fell into it when initially I started out with all these expectations, and it just wasn't going to work.
Matt, dude, and let me tell you
that's
something.
That's just not how it goes.
You might be a quote unquote glass half empty cat, but are you happy?
I don't know.
You know what it is. I just,
complicated.
because it's okay. That's an up and down thing. All I'm saying is, famous is the question. The idea here is that you could be living a lush life, like economically, but the ability to become famous. How much would you hate yourself for having to corrupt yourself to the system in order to become famous? There's very few cats that have full autonomy and creative control. And so, And so what I'm trying to say is, like what you just said, you're proud of your canon. You're proud of what you've done. And let me tell you, man, I started my show 10 years ago, and everybody that was super close to me, I didn't even know where this was all going. But in 1 year, I've cranked out 3 books, and I'm really proud of that. And you know what? That's all you focus on is singularity, cutting through the morass, uniqueness, and then legacy. And, I'm getting texts from teachers of mine, yoga teachers, or just life teachers, and they're just like, man, the legacy is cemented. And I'm not wallowing in my greatness. There's nothing accomplished yet. I'm just going to keep going. And so you just keep, that to me is the definition of success, is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You keep moving forward. And at the end, we can open a bottle of 60-year-old aged whiskey and be like, look at all this stuff, But, you're never satisfied. There's always self-doubt, and being famous is overrated.
Of course,
I
was just saying.
I know what you're saying. I know
that was my dream, but yeah, you're totally right, and I think success, is just being able to do what you're doing and enjoy it and get excited about doing more of it tomorrow or down the road. And then go change. Maybe being able to sustain yourself a little bit with it, and
absolutely.
That's it,
Oh my God. And then go change another diaper, I mean, it's
exactly.
Zeph, I got a jam, man. You got anything on, can you tease anything from the Dead stream tonight? You got anything on tap you want to talk about?
As I always do, I'm doing just like a focus on the week or the month. So I'm just doing a bunch of really great like Winterland stuff from October and some like live clips and stuff, like video stuff too. I'm throwing that in, which I haven't really done before.
Whoa.
So just to check out some of the stuff since it's like around the anniversary of things. And
don't forget about Brent's birthday. All right, I mean, you might want to.
I know. I need, if I have time between dinner and now when I do it, I should actually look into that because it might be something I could pull out of that show.
Worcester,
it's 83.
Worcester, 10,
that show?
Yeah, his 10/21/83. There's a, the happy birthday into Scarlet Fire is just mind blowing. So, it's always great to hang. We'll get that whiskey hopefully sooner than later, man. Much love to you.
Yeah, likewise, Jake, and call me anytime.
All right, bro. Be good.
All right, man.
Later, dude. Peace.
See ya.
Well, it's just another day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Thanks to Jim Parisi as always. We'll see you later.